We are hopeless, selfish creatures, and we need a savior.
She was a total heathen.
All right, we're doing a podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to an episode of an ExMo,
An ExMo.
Walk into a Bar. If you'll notice, we do not have our Nevermo today.
Oh, I'm so sad.
I know, Erica's not feeling well. She's under the weather today, so we are going to excuse her. But I would like to introduce to you our guest. This is Courtney Pearl. Say hi, Courtney.
Hi. Thank you for having me on.
So glad to have you. This is awesome. We are filming from Land of a Thousand Hills, which is a favorite coffee place. Like, we see each other a bunch here.
Here all the time.
I know. We do
All the time.
We do a book club here together. Courtney does tarot for tips here. Which
They
is,
are the best. They are so fun to do it here. People come just to see me, and I love that.
yeah, I'm one of those people who come to just I'll be coming this coming Sunday if you'll be here.
I won't be, but now maybe I will.
Maybe better.
I'm like, I'll come. Just bring a deck of cards. I'll be
Right.
ready. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, for sure. So let's introduce Courtney. Courtney's a friend of mine, but not just that. Courtney is Daybreak's resident witch.
Yeah, I like to say Daybreak's local witch because
Local witch.
in our networking group, it was kind of a joke. Everybody was like, I'm Daybreak's local accountant. I'm Daybreak's local real estate agent. And I stood up and said, I'm Daybreak's local witch. And then it just stuck. But I'm happy to say that I'm not the only witch in Daybreak. There are many of us, and I love it. Love it.
Well,
So
awesome.
shout out to my witches.
To my witches.
To my witches.
I love it. So, Courtney, we want to get to know a little bit about your experience. This is kind of like the witchy pagan season right now. We've got lots of holidays,
I love
lots
it.
of focus. Courtney loves this, but for different reasons, because you grew up Mormon too, and you've gone down a path that I have yet to really discover. So, and
Just
today,
you wait.
I'm here waiting with bated breath. I'm excited. Last week we had an episode on the goddess. We talked about growing up in a Christian culture where it's very patriarchal. A lot of focus on the men, and the women are just kind of ignored and erased from theology. So we'll probably be tying some of that into our episode today,
Oh, for sure.
and a little bit more about the divine in paganism and other spiritual paths that you have discovered. So for today, just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us your Mormon story, as it
Yeah,
were.
my story. Well, I think my story is a little bit different than I think a lot of people who are deconstructing Mormonism, leaving Mormonism, in that my family was a lot more nuanced. I wasn't in a family that was strict. My parents each came from families that were much more orthodox and much more in it, as it were. And they were kind of, we like to say in the Mormon culture, weak in their testimony.
No.
They were like, some of this stuff is, my mom was a questioner. She was the one raising her hand in all of the gospel doctrine classes and like, well, what about this? This doesn't quite fit. What do you say about that? And she kind of noticed that she was not popular. That did
Yeah.
not make her well liked in those circles. So over the years, she was like, listen, it's not for me. And even my dad getting married to my mom, they were very young. He was kind of like, come on, maybe we should just go to the temple, just in case.
Yeah.
So they did. And again, was kind of like, nah, with the whole garments and going back to the temple and stuff. So that just wasn't a big, strong thing. But I think it came down to when me and my sister were born, I'm the firstborn. My mom was struggling a lot raising kids with, okay, but how do I raise kids to have some sort of spirituality, some sort of knowledge of God and so it kind of pulled her back to the roots of like, well, I mean, we'll go to church. So we went to church, but it was kind of like loose. It was a little loosey-goosey. So
Were you Jack Mormons?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I grew up in Indianapolis in the Midwest. So the Mormon church was very different culturally than it
Sure.
is here, where we called it the bubble. When we moved back to Utah, it was like, and even I was 12, turning 13 when we moved back to Utah, where my parents are all from, their family's all from. So I grew up with something very different. And I was gung-ho young women's. I was all in. Probably more so than my parents. I was like, this is amazing, personal progress, all the things. And then I moved here to a small town up north, and there was intense culture shock. I was like, wait, this feels different. Something doesn't feel right. And I did not fit in. It was very clear, I think, to a lot of the youth that I was going to school with that I just wasn't the same as them.
Yeah.
They could feel it. They could sense it. I could sense it. I didn't belong. I also was going to a place where there was extremes because I came from a middle school in Indiana, no other Mormons in my school. I think there was one girl.
What would that even be like? I have no idea.
It took 30 to 45 minutes to drive to church on Sunday.
Wow.
And so when we didn't feel like going, we just didn't.
Right. Because that's very inconvenient.
It's a commitment. And so for me, getting to see my church friends on Sunday and mutual night was so exciting and fun. I was all in. It was just a different vibe. But I came to live in Utah, and it was kind of like, almost everybody in school is your entire ward goes to the same school you go to. It was a small town anyway. So yeah, different feeling. And I think that's where I started to not feel aligned.
And this is where a lot of Utahns will say, oh, no, it's not the church, it's the culture of the church. And what they mean is that
Part of that is true in my case and Ben.
And the Utah culture particularly, because there are so many of us concentrated here. It's a lot more opportunity to judge one another.
For sure. Yeah, I felt that really heavily. And I could feel just I'm not like the others.
Right.
One of these is not like the others. Yeah, so it just felt that. But I think it made it easier for me when I got into, got married and started my own family. It started to come to a place where it was easier for me to question things. It was easier for me to say, I'll take what I want out of this, but leave the rest. Because of my upbringing and because of my parents, I think that it was a little bit easier for me to say, I don't have to subscribe to all of this, My husband was raised in a family that was very different than that in this small town up north. And so he was internally struggling with the fact that he didn't really believe it either. None of it was aligning for him. He didn't want to go to church as a teenager. He was struggling with that. He really didn't want to disappoint his family, but it was just a real push and pull for him. And so for me, I was like, well, let's go through the temple because that's what, we're supposed to do. But I was also telling him, I don't want to wear those garment things. I don't know what those are. I just learned about those and I don't like them.
What? You were able to choose whether or not.
Well, that's what I said.
Garments, yeah.
Because I had just learned about them. My parents didn't wear them. I didn't know what was going on.
Okay.
But when I learned about it and we were going to go be sealed in the temple, I was like, yes, I want to be sealed in the temple. Of course I do. Together for time and all eternity. Who doesn't want that? But I don't like those garment things and I don't want to wear those. And it was my husband actually who was like, oh, no, you have to. That's not a choice. And I was like, what do you mean? It's my life. And he's like, no. If you go into the temple and you say these promises and you make these covenants.
And you're making a covenant with me too.
But again, he didn't believe in any of it. He was being dragged into it even by me. So some rocky years in our marriage there when it was kind of like, what are we doing? And then it was eventually kind of that, I don't know, this slow transition into not fighting with him as much about making him go to church and making him be a part of it as much as I wanted him to be. And me stopping and realizing, well, wait a minute, do I actually believe in all this? And it was getting to that point when my kids were little, my twins had just been born, they were in their first year. And I was kind of like, yeah, no, I don't really believe in it either. I don't think that we have to do that to be together forever. I don't really, and that was kind of the final straw. It was and I mean, you've talked about on this podcast all of the other reasons and all the CS letter and all the things that come up, and then you're like, oh, please. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to pretend anymore that any of this feels good or any of it, right?
Right. Because some people are all in or all out, and some of us become all out.
Yeah. And my parents were, they were Sunstone magazine subscribers all growing up. They were influenced by that and the questioning and stuff. And so they were like, and I'm like, did this really happen? Yep.
And yet they still
Yeah.
practiced. They still went to
I
church.
mean, I think they totally 100% went just to give us something. I don't think that there was anything in them that was like, okay, we have to do this. We're going to practice it. I mean, I think in our house, we joked that like stake conference was a day off.
Right.
Even,
It's pajama Sunday.
Pajama
Right.
Sunday,
Uh-huh.
and really anything. And my dad, I didn't even realize this. I was maybe not aware, but because we were in Indiana at the time, he would drive us to church. I think he maybe even dressed up for church. I can't remember, but across the street from the church was a golf course. So he'd drop us off at church and he'd go golfing. And my sister and I think we just thought he was at church with us. I don't know, but it was kind of a
Sure, but
Nah,
I know a lot
you
of
know.
people want to give their kids some kind of spiritual grounding. And
Yeah.
if this is what's familiar and comfortable to them, why not, right?
For
And
sure.
how cool of your parents to give you that, but also give you the freedom to kind of explore for themselves.
Yeah. And
For
I started
yourselves.
to be aware that my mom was not as in as I maybe thought she was. She had actually called Dr. Laura. Do you remember Dr. Laura?
I remember Dr. Laura Schlesinger.
Yep. We
Yes.
listened to it on the radio all the time. And I actually loved that. I loved that people called in and asked her for advice. I wanted that job so bad. And I was like, how do I get that job where people just call me? But she called in and she recorded it and we listened to it later. And her question was, how do I raise my kids in a church I don't necessarily believe in? And what do I do with that? How do I give them kind of a background in spirituality, but not, how do I navigate that? And her answer was really smart. I don't necessarily agree with all the things Dr. Laura says.
No.
But she did say, it's okay to take them to church and then say, so here's what you learned at church and here's what mommy believes. And that is kind of how my mom raised us. She was like, so they'll tell you this at church, but that's not the only thing you have to believe. That's not the only thing you have to think. You can also think this way. And here's what I believe, and you may not believe that either. And it was more open.
Giving you freedom to think and believe
Yeah.
what you wanted to think and believe.
Yeah.
I'm stunned. I have no
I know.
idea what that is like.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah, that's
very
good.
lucky. So that's why deconstructing or leaving the church was not as much of my world crashing as I know it is for many people. And I absolutely understand why it is for them. But I consider myself lucky that I had that example of you can question things. It doesn't have to be black and white. And even when I was Relief Society teacher at one point, I loved that calling actually. I got to tell other people what was what. I kinda love that.
I can see that about you.
Yeah, I'm like, so this is what the scripture says, but also, what do you guys think?
Uh-huh.
that was me as a Relief Society teacher. But I was in, but I was also like, it's a discussion, it's open-ended, there are a lot of things you can think, and I thank her for that. That was due to my mom having that example in my life. So
Way cool. Do you mind if I ask where your parents are now spiritually and how they feel with your spiritual path?
I think it aligns a lot with kind of where I'm at, but not maybe as labeled. I think that they're like, yeah, there's a God, whatever that looks like or feels like. I mean, I just, they definitely don't have any connection to the church at all. I
Right.
mean, once we were adults, they were like, woohoo, we don't have to go anymore. We can drink alcohol openly now. And, it was just kind of a whatever. But I think that there is spirituality there. I think that my mom has always been a spiritual person. I think she's always been really willing to read anything. A lot of the books that I read came from her. She was like, oh, you should read this. This is really interesting. But she's also not one to be like, this is the truth. And now I believe this is the truth and the only truth. She's like, this is an interesting idea. Maybe it's that. Or maybe this. I don't really know. Nobody does. So that's okay. Which is a nice place to land for those who are transitioning and figuring it out.
I think that's awesome that you were raised with the ability to think critically. which I didn't know what critical thinking was until I was in college. Because growing up for me, it was in Provo of all places, and you can say
The Holy Land.
the Holy Land. You can say you feel sorry for me because a lot of people do when I tell
We
them
would
that.
just go to Provo. We'd be like, "It's the Holy Land." We would kind of make fun of it.
Yes.
We're like, "This is sacred space.
I had
Jesus resides here." We would say things like that. We're so blasphemous.
no, but no, I even had like stalwart members of the church say like, "You're from Provo. I'm so sorry." up in the Salt Lake
I
area.
mean, there's a bubble.
And then there's a
the
bubble.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've shared some experiences about that. When I was growing up in Provo, everybody I knew was a member of the church. Even my teachers, my classmates, everybody in my neighborhood, except
Yeah.
for the people that were trying to convert, but I was spoon fed, back then. It was before Common Core. You were a teacher too. Like, right?
Yeah.
So go to
That
Common Core.
Common Core.
Yeah. I'm a big
Rigor.
Yes, I love it. But back before Common Core, it was just open wide, and
Yeah.
I'm going to spoon feed you all these facts and figures, and you're just going to regurgitate them for me.
Yep.
And then I'm in college, and I'm like, wait, you can think for yourself?
Yeah.
But then it took me years to kind of learn how to do that. But I love that your parents raised you in a situation where that was cultivated from a young age.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your upbringing and leaving the church, but not being resentful, which I love.
Yeah.
Some people are, and we give them space to do that.
Yeah. I
But
think maybe if I'd paid a lot more money into it, I would be a lot more resentful.
I
But
know. I'm waiting to get my tithing back. It was an investment. I want to get a return.
collective lawsuit or something, I absolutely would be on board with that if I had paid more into it at the time.
Right. But so now I just want to talk about where you are now as this Daybreak's local witch.
Yeah.
here.
How do we get there?
And how do you
right?
get there? Because a lot of us, and I'm one of them, think, okay, I left, I'm deconstructing. Now what? I want to reconstruct, but there are so many different ideas out there and faith traditions and beliefs, or maybe I don't want to have a faith tradition or belief, but I don't know what because people have been telling me what to believe my whole life, and now I have to decide for myself.
Yeah.
So I want to hear.
Scary.
It's terrifying, but it's also really empowering. So in today's episode, we're just going to be exploring a spiritual path, and Courtney is very, very good at this, very proficient at teaching and
I try.
exploring. No, she's amazing.
Hopefully I can be coherent enough to be able to present this in the right way. But I think spirituality, when it comes to paganism, for me, and what's beautiful is a lot of people who have left the Mormon church that I've met or in the same circles that I'm in have landed there too. And so it's not uncommon. And it does feel very empowering and grounding when you've left something that tells you exactly there's an authority over you all the time, over what God wants of you, what God is. Paganism's a really beautiful place to land when you still want a spirituality, you want to be connected to something divine. And it did start for me with the goddess. I think that's very common too, because you are in a patriarchal religion where it's all about him and the father and the role of the patriarchy in having those priesthood gifts, and all of this is bestowed on you, and it goes down this chain of authority to you. And then you go, what about Heavenly Mother? We spend our whole life talking about Heavenly Father, and then it's like, who's the Heavenly Mother? And I started kind of going, that's kind of where I started searching first, was I started looking into, okay, I think when I was still in, I was like, well, at least the Mormon church acknowledges that there is a Heavenly Mother. They just don't like talking about her, and they have all these excuses why we don't talk about her. But I'm like, at least they acknowledge her, which is more than some. So I thought that was a good reason to stick it out for a little while.
Yeah.
And then I started reading into like the Gnostic Gospels. I read Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson, which got me into her ministry and talking about Jesus through a different lens, through the lens of a woman who was prophet. And the Gospel of Mary and Thomas and Philip that were all taken out. Then there's the New Testament. If you haven't read that, that's amazing. So if you're like, Christianity is still something I kind of want to focus on, but I need something different. I need a different message. I want to hear more from what Jesus taught. That's a really good direction to go. And even as a pagan, I don't say I'm not Christian. I'd say I probably lean into the more Gnostic Christianity. I also studied a little bit of secular Buddhism, another podcast, Secular Buddhism, that
love
I was
secular
like,
Buddhism.
this is speaking to me in all the good ways, which led me to the Lost and Found Club here in Salt Lake, which is for people who've left the church and are looking for community.
I did not
That's
know about
another great
that.
resource. They do like events like girls camp and so fun.
That's the organization, because I've seen like the TikToks about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And then you get to burn your things at the
Yep.
ceremony. Oh my gosh, I would love to do
Yeah,
that.
I went to their Halloween party last year. They had me come read cards, and I was busy all night with like 4, 5, 6 other card readers. We were just like everybody lining up to get their cards read. So they're a great organization, and they did like a public speaking event with Noah, the host of the
Yeah. Rochetta.
anyway, yeah. So I got to go see him speak, and that was a really nice place to kind of go, okay. I loved that he talked about the secular Buddhism idea was learn to be comfortable with uncertainty. We don't have all the answers, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I was like, great, let's lean into that. Because I think we think Mormonism is safe because we have answers. We're being told these are the answers. You don't have to think for yourself. We'll just give you all the answers. Or someone, a man in authority, is going to tell you what those answers are.
Yeah.
So I kind of started leading down that. And I was in the same boat as my mom, whereas now my kids were getting older. They were growing up, and I thought, I don't want them to have nothing. I just don't know exactly what to offer them that's open-ended and that's more choose your own adventure. So I have tried to find that balance as well. But the beauty of paganism is that it's not a religion. It's a spirituality based on what is natural, what is in the natural world. And a lot of times when I say I'm a witch, people right off the bat go, oh, you're Wiccan. And I'm like, nope. Again, that's kind of a religion. That's an organized religion with a dogma and a doctrine. And you don't have to be Wiccan to be a witch or to be a pagan. So I started just going, what if God is in all of the good? What if it's in all of the trees and the land and what if we lost some kind of connection to the land? And that's where we started rejecting the natural part of ourselves, our human bodies, our sexuality, our everything that we are. And that organized religion, especially when the colonization of the Roman Catholic Church spread throughout Europe and then came to the United States and then westward expansion, your history, read your history books, but manifest destiny. And Mormonism is kind of a catalyst of all of that, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's when I found a group called Nourishing Kin, which is a group of people who, again, it was kind of a soft place for people leaving the church to land. They've decentralized the church since then, but they are kind of a group that says, we're going to get together around the Celtic Wheel of the Year, and we're going to just reintroduce ourselves to Northern European traditions and connecting with land. And that opened up a world for me to be able to say, oh my gosh, what if we reclaim our cultural practices from before we were colonized by the Christian church? What if it's, what if there's a real sorrow and grief kind of ingrained in all of us from our ancestors that said, I used to have a belief. I used to have a connection to this homeland that I came from, and that was taken from me. And now those of us who are descendants of those ancestors, the white people
Pretty much.
here in Utah, are now like culturally appropriating native practices from here because we don't have anything of our own.
Right.
So that led me down a whole path of, well, I'm going to try my best not to culturally appropriate and respect the land I'm currently on as as the native adoptive mother that I have here, who loves me just like a mother and cares for me just like a mother. But my homeland is my motherland. And what can I do to reconnect with that and the practices my ancestors had when they were connected to that land? There are folk stories, there's ceremonies and rituals and practices and festivals that all connect us back to land. So that has been what's brought me into this spirituality of connecting to myself, connecting to source, which you can brand as God or goddess or whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But source, self, and land is kind of my divine trinity.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 3, which is a sacred number, and
Yeah.
you have found what works best for you.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Now, as far as being able to impart that sort of spirituality to my children, I'm not sure I figured out that little piece of it. I tried to do what's called Sunday story times with my kids, and I have all of these resources I'll show you, but I started bringing up like, okay, we're going to read a story, maybe a folk story, maybe a mythology, maybe it's a true story, but I'll bring a story into it. We'll learn about really good spiritual practices like gratitude, connection, all of that. And I'll just kind of implement that in. And that was kind of my fear in leaving Mormonism, was like, one thing Mormons do really well is organization.
yeah.
And they had just come out with like the Come Follow Me manual for kids and family home evening.
Right.
Where you're like, here's a structured manual. We're teachers.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah, we need
a
to have
manual,
some kind of
curriculum.
manual.
I'm like, sign me up. Okay.
Exactly.
They're going to tell me exactly what to do, how to teach my kids, and we're going to sit down and do it. I was reluctant to let that go and kind of float in space, because it did feel like, okay, once I untether myself from that, then what? Now I'm just floating in space going, grab onto whatever is nearby. I don't know. And that felt scary.
Yeah.
So, but I don't remember when it was or who said it, but someone was like, listen, people homeschool and they make up their own. It can be done. If you want your kids to learn something, you figure it out. And I was like, oh, I guess I can.
Yeah.
I mean, there are resources out there. I can do this.
Well, and as teachers, you're resourceful too. You have to find things to
Make up my own
you make up your-
lessons. Now, do my kids love it? Not always. I feel a little bit like I'm channeling my grandma. She had 8 children. She was very much in the church, and she always wanted to do like lessons with her kids. And my mom recalls those memories as like my grandma yelling at everybody and like, come and sit down and we're going to read scriptures together. And everyone's like, I don't want to. And it's a little bit like that sometimes.
But Elder Bednar, once upon a time, said, "It's consistency is the most important. You're not going to have perfect getting together at all times. Not that I mean,
And
that was
sometimes we're just like, we're just not doing it today. Whatever.
no. But I love that you're bringing in stories, because those are used to show morals, right? There's
Parables,
like
right?
Aesop's fables. There's a moral to the story. A lot of people believe that once you leave Christianity, you are amoral. You don't have any morals whatsoever. You don't have a direction to go. But the truth is there are morals in all faith traditions around the world, and I mean paganism as well, and even atheists have morals. They have this guiding compass of things that they think are important and not important, and in treating one another.
And I would dare say that the morals of paganism, in that trying to decolonize, is even something that has not really been breached or approached in Mormonism or Christianity in general. They, started out colonizing everywhere and converting and labeling paganism as heathens and bad and immoral and all of that. So where we're trying to undo that, not just in our own practices, but within ourselves, noticing things that are so ingrained in our culture and our subconscious that it gets uncomfortable sometimes to be like, oh, even to acknowledge that my own ancestors came across the plains with a Willie Handcart company and all these, Mormon stories that we make them the heroes of the story. But it's a lot of grief and shame that comes with knowing that I'm both proud of my ancestors for doing what they did and getting through it, and ashamed of the reasons why, and understanding that they had a homeland in Denmark and Ireland and England that they must have left for a reason. Most people don't leave their homeland for
Just cause.
just because.
Yeah.
So acknowledging that, and then what happened to the indigenous people once they got here, and the atrocities, and kind of just coming to terms with that and going, well, okay, now what do I do? Mm-hmm. How do I start to live differently where I am more in relationship with the land and not taking ownership, even in the language I speak, how I talk about plants and animals and my yard, to say it's mine and I have ownership of it, or I'm in relationship with it. One of those practices would be when I pick fruit from my garden. I don't just go out there and say, this is my garden and these are my fruits. I teach my kids, and we go out there and we say, you ask permission of the plant. Like, there's consent. The plant is equal to you. It's not, you're not above it in some hierarchy. We are in relationship with it. So if I'm going to take something from that plant, I better ask, and I better wait and receive an answer and feel what I feel. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's like, I don't want you taking anything from me today. And so we leave the plant alone. We also give offerings to the plant. So we bring out our coffee grounds. Sometimes we like take a piece of our hair and leave it, whatever is going to nourish the soil, and give that back to the plant. This is just little ways that we can start to change our relationship with the kinfolk that is our plants and animals and the land itself.
As you were mentioning this, I'm thinking of the principle of humility, which is huge in religion. Like, you need to be humble, but it is in relation to God.
Yes.
You are his subordinate. You need to humble yourself before him. And it's not so much a relationship as it is, I mean, unless it's just subservience to this higher power. But I love the idea of having this relationship with a plant, saying we're equals. And I'm going to offer something to you, and you're going to give me something in return. Not because I'm better than you, not because you're better than me, but we're on equal grounds. I love that.
Well, and in a way, it is still being humble before God if you believe that God is in the plants, the animals, and the people in which you interact with. Because that is also kind of in alignment with, I mean, not just paganism, but other religious philosophies as well. It's like, we're all treat others the way you want to be treated, because that is you.
Yeah.
And we are all God. And I mean, so it's not so important that there's a belief that's that we all agree, right? That everybody who is a pagan agrees that this is what it looks like, and this is how you worship, and this is where God is, and this is what's beautiful about it. And one of the quotes I love about paganism is religion is founded on a dogma, which is like a tree. There's a doctrine that it stems from, the trunk of the tree. And so you can have branches from that, but it's the tree. And paganism is the whole forest. It's all of those beliefs in everything and anything and whatever, kind of, you know. But stemming from the idea that, again, you treat others the way you want to be treated. Others can mean all kinfolk. Kinfolk can be the nation of oak trees, the nation of bees, the nation of squirrels, whatever, right?
Beautiful mutual respect. That sounds very Buddhist too.
Yeah.
Saying,
Oh, yeah.
We are all the same. There's,
Yeah.
there's no me and you. It's just, which is so hard for us to wrap our minds around in the Western cultures, particularly, where it's me, mine. I've got to be self-reliant. I've got to be self-sufficient. I'm going to climb this corporate ladder and become this person. I love the idea of just being one. Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Harmonious. I
Yeah.
like
And it
that.
can be celebrated however people feel aligned. So, like, for me and the community that I found at Nourishing Kin, we meet together about every 6 weeks for the Wheel of the Year. And then we learn a little bit about that. You were asking a little bit about Samhain. That's what we just had. November 1st is Samhain, and that's the Celtic celebration or fire festival of the harvest. So it's essentially the practice that the veil is very thin between worlds. In the Celtic Wheel of the Year, the in-between times are most sacred. So it's not so much important to celebrate the solstices and the equinox, but there are 4 in-between festivals. And that's Beltane, May Day, May 1st. You have Imbolc, which is actually February 1st. And you have Lunessa, August 1st. So those aren't solstices and equinoxes, but they're in the in-between times where there's planting and harvesting happening. And so there's certain practices that we do that we're kind of almost reinventing, but reclaiming too. Not all of it was passed down, so we don't know everything that our ancestors did, but we try to reclaim it by doing the things that they did at that time. Nourishing Kin, we always carve turnips and rutabaga because that's what they did for jack-o'-lanterns back then.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they didn't have pumpkins
Uh-huh.
at the in Northern Europe, so it started out as turnips and rutabagas, and they're not easy to carve. Let me just tell you, power tools. You get that thing, all dug out there.
Because they had power tools back then.
I'm sure.
Those days.
Otherwise, they had really strong muscles in their arms because it takes some effort, some sweat on your brow to get that little jack-o'-lantern carved. But we try to do things that and folk storytelling. We bring out storytelling, songs. We do things that reconnect us to that Wheel of the Year, marking that Wheel of the Year. And after doing that and celebrating those Wheel of the Year events for the last 4 years, I think, it is amazing how it marks this passage of time in such a way. Like they're almost exactly 6 weeks apart throughout the whole year. And you learn to honor those cycles. I used to have seasonal depression in the wintertime. And I've noticed the last 2 years, I actually start to get depressed in spring because winter is ending. And I'm like, but I've loved winter. Because now I'm leaning into what my ancestors did in the winter. Instead of fighting the natural body and world and seasons. But to say winter's a time for rest. Winter's a time for doing less. It's dark most of the time. Our ancestors slept. I mean, when it got dark, they went to bed.
Right.
They slept until the sun rose again. So there's a lot less to do. There's not as much planting and harvesting. You're just kind of getting through the winter. So I've tried to honor that and do less in the winter. And then I'm like, ooh, I'm loving this. Cozy under a blanket, fireplace going, tea and cookies, get a little fat.
No, I was going to say that sounded counterintuitive, but it's not. That is incredibly intuitive too.
Yeah.
But in our culture, in today's culture, it's like it gets dark, do more. You need to stay busy in order to not distract yourself from that natural cycle in the earth.
Isn't it crazy that we picked Christmas as a holiday where like capitalism and commercialism is at its highest point and we're just like running around? Do you ever wonder why that stresses us out, makes us so miserable? Because it's kind of going against what we're supposed to be doing. And women, especially in our culture, a lot of the burden falls on them to make Christmas magical, to cook, to bake, while they're also holding full-time jobs and doing all the things. So by the time Christmas comes around, they're exhausted, they're tired, and they kind of just want to say, screw everybody. I want to go to bed.
And then January comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're depressed.
And then you're depressed. You have to wait till the next holiday comes. Yeah. So talk to me about Christmas, because it's a Christian holiday, and I would imagine that, I mean, we still hold it as a tradition, but it looks different for you.
Yeah.
How do you celebrate that with your family?
And we've kind of leaned more towards a secular Christmas. We still do Santa Claus and some of the traditions we love. I think last year I put up the nativity and I told the story of Jesus' birth, but as more of another story of mythology. Like, to me, okay, so I have to backtrack just a little bit because I read a book back in my early deconstruction days called Jesus and the Lost Goddess, going back to goddesses. And it is such an academic book. Half of the book is the appendix, or, when you have to flip back and there's like little... Is that what it's called? Appendix? The back of the book? Little numbers, and you have to go back and... Yeah. So I had 2 bookmarks Because as I'm reading it, I had to go back and be like, what does this mean? Oh, okay, what is this about? Okay. And I read that book, and the thing I got from it was the Gnostic Christians, after what would have been the time of Jesus' death, they were not as concerned with Jesus being a real person. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that he wasn't, that he was maybe multiple people and multiple mythologies that were around for 1,000 years before him. But the Gnostic Christians were not concerned at all about that. They were like, this is teaching us how to live our lives. It's the idea of it. It's the teachings that we're getting. Mm-hmm. And the literal Christians were like, no, he has to be real. He was born and he died for our sins, and that has to be real. And it all has to be real for us to believe in any of this. And I read that and I thought, actually, I don't know if I've ever cared if he was real or not. I mean, that's just me. But I was like, what if it's all just a great story to teach us something, just like Buddha taught, and just like this and just like that. And it's so great. And it's just teaching us how to live our lives better and to love each other better. Mm-hmm. So when I teach my kids Christmas and I have the nativity, I still teach it. And I go, oh, and then this baby was born and then this star was in the sky. And it's no different than when I'm teaching them about the story of Caradwyn in Welsh mythology and how she brewed a potion of Awen. And it's all great stories that teach us something. So I include that. And yeah, we do kind of lean more into the Yule traditions. Mm-hmm. So I would love to do more of this. I haven't done it yet, but there's a tradition in Wales, Mari Lloyd, which is like a horse skull on a sheet with like holly. It looks insane. And Mari Lloyd and a bunch of people, they travel around the town on Yuletide or Christmas, and they knock on people's door and they have a rap battle. They sing songs back and forth to each other where the Mari Lloyd people are like, let me in, let me in. We want to come in and eat your food and drink your drinks. And then the people in the house go, no, you can't come in. And they have to try to come up with their own part of the song. And eventually they lose the rap battle and they have to invite everybody in, and everybody has drinks and food.
Oh, how fun.
So cool.
You're
I haven't made one yet, but it's coming.
Please invite me. I will so come.
We're all going to go around town with our little horse skull and we're going to do this whole thing. But we lean into those things that were once, part of our ancestors. They did these things. Mm-hmm. They did the wassailing, which is blessing the apple ciders and the apple trees and singing to them and hanging bread from the boughs of the trees and singing the songs, like Here We Come A-Wassailing. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We've lost so much because of capitalism.
And it's all community. Mm-hmm. It's like all about community and doing. And by the way, with Yuletide coming up, and this is just a service to everybody who doesn't know this, the 12 days of Christmas starts on Christmas Day.
What?
I know.
It's supposed to be the 12 days leading up to Christmas.
No. That's the Advent calendar. Again, capitalism coming in and saying, get ready for this magical day with all these treats and food and stuff like that. But actually, with Boxing Day being after Christmas, the traditions were Christmas Day starts the Christmas season. Yule, being the 20th or 21st of December, started the Yule season. So for all those people running around frantically in December trying to get all your Christmas presents wrapped, to get the neighbor gifts out, you have that pile of like brownies that all your neighbors brought you.
Yeah.
And you're like feeling like a piece of crap because you didn't bake anything yet. And you're like stressing out because you're like, what are we going to give the neighbors this year, guys? What are we going to do? You actually have 12 to 20 days after Christmas to do all that.
Guys, you have permission to not
everybody chill out.
Right. I love that.
Our ancestors did not plan on that. They did not want us running around, going into debt, spending all the money, doing all the things. It was supposed to be drawn out, and you were supposed to do really nothing else. You'd stay in your house and you'd bake and you'd drink cider and you'd, get drunk or whatever. Yeah.
And then you go visit the neighbors afterward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
So,
going to be helpful for January for those of us who really struggle with
yes.
January. After you're done with Christmas, giving to family and friends and receiving from them. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to spread that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to try that this January.
Oh yeah, I totally do it. And I just say thank you to all the gifts that come in and I go, thank you a lot. That's great. And I just wait till after Christmas and then we go around with my kids and we give out whatever it is we want or have done. And we're already baking anyway over the Christmas holidays because you're, sitting around doing nothing else. Kids are playing with their new toys, whatever. So yeah, we do all that after Christmas. And then you have 6 weeks from Yule to Imbolc, which is February 1st. So it kind of breaks up the winter. Imbolc is the first planting season. So it's kind of the beginning of spring. It makes you feel like there's this hope on the horizon. I mean, it ushers you through winter a little bit more gently. And you can just be like, yeah. Oh, look, it's already Imbolc. We're halfway through the winter now. The next one is Ostera, which is going to be Easter. So there you go.
I think we need to have you on more so you can break down all of these
Yeah.
traditions throughout the year. We'll invite you every 6 weeks.
Yeah. And I've been talking about it on my podcast, Practically Magic, if you want to check it out. I've been kind of walking people through those a little bit. And yeah, we're going to talk about Yule too.
I love that. Yeah, so make sure you check out Practically Magic. It is a great podcast.
Magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned how you have stories and books and things that you worked with your kids at home. I know you have some resources here and
Yeah.
love to share those with the audience if you want to share those.
Yes, I would love to, because I know how it is when you're looking for things and you're like, what do I do with my kids? Or how do I start to kind of grasp this concept of paganism or what connection to land? What would that look like? I've actually handed this book out a couple of times, but I always start with, this was like Nourishing Kin. We call this our Bible. Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants. Robin Wall Kimmerer is the author. This is a fantastic read. And listen on Audible if you need to. But she does a great job. She's an Indigenous woman who also studies botany and plants. So she brings in a scientific view of those plants while also looking at the spiritual aspect of her and traditions. And it just kind of helps bring those of us who came from white colonist ancestors, bring it in to how do I respect this land a little bit better? This isn't my homeland. And all of us can feel that feeling of being one foot on the boat, meaning we haven't really taken stewardship of this land because we all know we came from somewhere else. You just kind of feel that. So this is a great book for those who want to start there. And Connection with Land, I suggest Root and Ritual. This will help you do little things like I talked about with your kids where you ask permission before you take from the plants. I got it from this book. Becca Piastrelli, I think is how you say the author's name. So those are a couple of resources I suggest. But as far as with your kids, this was an excellent book someone recommended to me. It's called Circle Round, Raising Children in Goddess Traditions. And it actually breaks the book down into those Wheel of the Year. So you have stories, recipes, songs, all kinds of like little crafts and stuff. I've only barely touched into it, but if you're looking for stuff to do with your kids and you don't have the Come Follow Me manual of paganism, this is as close as you're going to get. I think it's a pretty great one to
There's
use.
your Sunday school curriculum book right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And we've just done real deep dives into folklore traditions. So there's a whole series of these books, a year full of stories, 52 folk tales and legends from around the world. I have a couple of different ones like this that are Celtic, Nordic, folk traditions. And so I teach those stories in my art classes with kids. I use those a lot, but they're great with my kids too. So
Love that. Because
place to start.
in school, we also teach cultural traditions, right? You taught kindergarten, first grade. Is that what you
Yeah.
taught before? You taught the
Yep.
littles. I taught the third graders. And yes, you want to teach that because you're educating those kids on different cultures. This is such an
Yeah.
important part of education to realize that the bubble is not just you
Yeah.
and your family. We are one world. We're a community of this
Yeah.
world of humans.
And you probably experienced this. One of the things my mom was struggling with when being in the church was, sitting in Relief Society, and they speak in a sort of language that it says we all, where, oh, we all agree with this, and you know that we agree, we all believe that. And she was uncomfortable with that, being that she's like, no, 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 we don't all. And I think that was my actual break point, was someone in church saying something about trans people and kind of just lumping me in with their beliefs about that, just, well, we all believe blah, blah, blah. And I was like, excuse me, no, I don't. And then I went, if I'm sitting in this room, am I agreeing to what they're all saying? And I think that was my last day at church.
Wow.
It was, there was a lot leading up to that. But at that point, I was like, I can't sit here anymore if sitting here means that I agree with that. So I love that when kids are in school learning about all these cultures and folklore, I even love that my kids' teachers have been really accepting. They, some of them have sent home during Christmas time, they'll say, we're going to talk about different wintertime traditions. Is there anything you'd like to share with our class? And I always write in, we're a pagan, we celebrate Yule, we do these things, we do a Yule log, I kind of like write a few things. When my twins were in kindergarten, one of the teachers, I will forever love this, she even researched and had the kids make these little orange candle things. It was a spell. Y'all. She taught the kindergartners how to do a little orange spell. And I was like, I love you so much. And she's like, is this okay? Is this right? And I was like, so great that my son came home with a little plate with an orange and then like cinnamon and herbs on it and a little candle stuck in it. And I was like, yeah, thank you.
Love that.
Good for her.
Well, I think now it is time for us, as we're wrapping up our show, to have a trying moment. So now it's time for a trying moment.
And now it's time for a trying moment.
So Courtney, I know you do tarot cards, you do oracle cards, you sometimes, like we said,
Yes.
you do it here at Land of Thousand Hills, and then you do it elsewhere as well.
Yep. And private sessions, people want to book with me. I do that. Yep.
So for today's trying moment, what do you have in store for us?
I always keep my set of pocket tarot with me, just in case I need to, pull a card or need some guidance. And now, while we're mentioning this, I love that. In the Mormon culture, obviously, something like this, they have their own connotations to it. They have their own. They might wrinkle their nose a bit at me.
Oh, I totally would have.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, yeah.
Which is hilarious to me, because as you know, in doing your research, how much of the church's original founding was steeped in divination and folklore
True.
and folk magic, right?
Yeah.
Divining rods, seer stones, all that good stuff. And so I just think it's a little bit ironic. Just kind of love it that people are like, are you inviting some evil into my home and into my space with this card reading stuff?
But we just kind of brushed that aside. That's what it was in the day, but not now.
Yeah.
That was my belief. Once upon a time, that was all right. No more.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, if you ever get a chance to do a private showing at Moon's Rare Books in Provo, ask him about his witchcraft collection and what sort of nuanced Mormon church folk magic stuff he has in his collection.
Wait,
he'll bring some stuff out.
In Provo.
And he's an awesome guy. He would be like, he showed us one of the original seer stones, actually, that he has in his collection. So,
Whoa.
and he has a witch's grimoire. Yeah. Anyway,
That's fantastic.
little side note for those of you who want to check that out.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about tarot cards and what the purpose is for those who are not familiar with them.
Yeah. So a lot of people start out with a gateway drug, oracle decks. Oracle decks are great if you want to just tip your toe into divination and try it out. Because oracle decks are usually completely original. Like depending on the theme of the oracle deck, each card is a different thing. The guidebook will tell you what they mean. They're very easy to use. Tarot is a little bit more complex. So there's major arcana, minor arcana, there's suits, like a deck of cards. And everything has a symbol. Everything is very meaningful. So it takes a bit more study and a bit more work. But you can, with tarot or oracle, you can read them intuitively. So it's fun to play with. And it's really about tapping into your own intuition. It's really about, there's no right or wrong way to do it. In fact, I don't really love using the guidebooks at all now that I've been doing this for a few years. I like to just read the cards intuitively. I take the knowledge that I've got, the studying that I've got from studying tarot, and then I just say, what does this card mean today, right now, for you?
Okay.
So it helps if you have a question. Do you have anything that you are pontificating about lately?
Yeah, I'm wanting to move forward. Like we've talked about in this podcast, I spent some time being angry, really for a really long time, which a lot of people go through. I don't know how angry you were in your phase, but it sounded like you were kind of you were transitioned a little bit easier because of your upbringing. But for those of us who grew up very orthodox, there is an anger phase. I'm ready to be done with that. I'm ready to just move on and work more toward reconstruction rather than focusing so much on deconstruction. So I think the question in my mind is the direction that I'm going to go, not just like professionally and in my personal life, but where I go spiritually as well. So what does the tarot have to say today?
About that. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll keep it simple. We'll just do one card
Okay.
because it's kind of, a good direct. Gotta cleanse the energy.
She's
Get it ready.
tapping the cards for those that are just listening. Got to give you a play
A
by
little shuffling. Okay. Why don't you cut the deck this time? So,
I will cut the deck. There we go.
okay. I feel like, ooh, interesting. Okay, so we have the Father of Pentacles, which I think is the King of Pentacles in a traditional tarot for those who follow tarot. And I love that it has this image of the stag with like rainbow colored horns. This deck has a lot of like really cool rainbow. I picked one that didn't. But
I
yeah.
love that.
And the pentacles are all about the earth element. Sometimes it has to do with money. I feel like you're going to have a sugar daddy.
Hell to the yeah. If any of you are listening and are interested in being my sugar daddy, applications will be accepted. Yes.
Yeah, but this is pointing at somebody really stable and usually masculine because the King of Pentacles or Father of Pentacles just leans more towards that. But it's somebody with a lot of stability and grounding for you. And so with all the different types of cards that you have in a tarot deck, this one is not just an archetype that I sense is, an energy or this is coming into your life. This feels like it's directed at a particular person.
I've had my tarot read like the last 2 years, and it's usually like, no hope for you, Kate. So this is the first time that this has been read for me, and I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Like I got the tingles just now.
And it may actually connect with your spirituality in a way that if there was someone speaking the language that draws you in, it might, it might feel like, this is going to give me like a path or direction to follow spiritually as well. But it's going to come in the form of a physical person.
Okay. Well, I'm blushing here. This is pretty. This is pretty exciting.
I do hope it is a sugar daddy, just because that's really nice.
Wouldn't it be? Just?
I always say I married first for love, but if I ever married again,
it'd be for.
It's gonna be for money.
For the sugar. Yes. Well, that's awesome. So thank you. I'm going to take this and I'll go home and journal about this because that has also been something on my mind. I just wasn't willing to share. So thank you for exposing my vulnerability.
It wasn't evil. You didn't feel like you stepped into a realm of being open to demonic spirits or anything like that?
No. Actually, that was a warm, good feeling that I just got now. That was the opposite of of what I would have believed as a Mormon once upon a
I
time.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just give it a try. I'm actually pleased to see a lot of people who are even still in the church kind of coming to me and saying, oh, I've been dabbling with oracle decks and I've been dabbling with tarot decks. And for me, no matter where you're at in your journey, I love that because it kind of steps into maybe divine inspiration can come through me. It's very empowering to see that people just shift their perspective on that instead of it all has to come from my bishop, my stake president, my prophet, whatever. It's like, this is me. Right?
I love that. I love it. And I love that you provide services for people who are looking for this sort of thing. So, as we wrap up today, Courtney, just wanted to see if you'd be willing to share with our audience where they can find you, what services you provide, and different websites, things that we're looking at.
So, where do I begin? I do energy and emotional healing sessions. So I have a modalities of emotional processing. I'm a Reiki master, and I'm also a honey practitioner, which is Welsh, a Celtic energy healing. And so I offer that in my own practice, Prism Healing. You can find that prism-healing.com or on Instagram at prism_healing. And you can also check out my podcast where I talk about all things magical, paganism, healing, all of the things on Practically Magic. That's magic with a CK because that's the spiritual form of magic and witchcraft, not like bibbidi bobbidi boo Harry Potter magic or pull a rabbit out of a hat magic.
Right. Right.
I'll just clarify that. So look for Practically Magic podcast. We have season 3 that we're recording right now. So we have quite a bit out there to offer. If you're lost and you need more inspiration and more guidance, I try to offer that as best I can.
That's fantastic. So thank you, Courtney. This has been so insightful. I feel like we've just touched the top, like the tip of the iceberg here.
Yeah.
There's so much to go into, but this has been really great. So if you're interested in exploring paganism, Courtney's a great resource for you, but she's also listed a lot of great ones, which we're going to put in our show notes. So glad you were here. Thank you so much for joining us today. So until next time, everyone.
Whoop.
Cheers to
Deconstructing
Mormonism.
Mormonism.